Would you please welcome Mr. Josh Reinstein with us all the way from Jerusalem just to come to this house this morning. Please welcome him. All right. Josh, thank you for, we've been together. We've been together in Jerusalem, we've been together in New York City, we've been together in Washington, D.C., and now we're in the fourth greatest city after those, Raleigh-Durham. I mean, this is like, isn't that in the top four? Wouldn't you guys say that? I thought so. And thank you for being here. This is my Jerusalem, this is my base, and where I've been sent from. So thank you for being here.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And thank you for inviting me into your church this morning. I have to say, as a Jew, I am comforted and my spirits are lifted to be surrounded by men and women of faith who are, as they have always been, our tried and true friends and allies in Israel. So thank you.
Awesome. Josh, tell us a little bit about the Christian Allies Caucus, because 3.5 years ago, that was historic for the Knesset to start this caucus.
Well, it definitely was. If someone were to say 5 years ago that there'd be a Christian Allies Caucus in the Knesset of Israel, people would think you just went mad. It was a real historic initiative by a man named Dr. Yuri Stern, who just passed away recently. It was started about 3.5 years ago as a mechanism in our Knesset to build a direct line of communication, cooperation, and coordination between the leaders of Israel, which is our parliament, and Christian leaders around the world, whether it be church leaders, political leaders, or leaders of organizations. And how we really work is we have monthly meetings within our Knesset where we propose different initiatives and see how we can work together. One initiative that we had recently was the strengthening and relationship between Israel and the African American community. One of the initiatives that we're having this month, our big initiative, is the advancement of the status of women based on Judeo-Christian values. So we're not a ceremonial caucus where we shake hands and take a lot of pictures. We're more of a working caucus where we take on real initiatives and we work to get them done. And we've been very successful in doing that.
It is quite amazing, the growth in the last 3.5 years that you guys started out with America, but now it's actually spanning the globe, this resurgence of support for Israel and the purposes of God.
Well, we are just shocked to see this unprecedented burst of activity of Jews and Christians coming together around the world. We work in every nation. We have conferences every year in Asia, in Africa, in Europe, in Canada. But we, of course, pay special attention to our greatest allies, America. And this last August, your Congress announced the Congressional Israel Allies Caucus, our first sister caucus, which is made up of 45 members of the House in Washington. And that started an avalanche of sister caucuses being started around the world. There's now one in Canada, and in the next 6 months there'll be one in the Philippines, Korea, London, South Africa, Malawi, Taiwan, Finland. So we're really seeing political leaders come together in mobilization for support for Israel and to actively promote Judeo-Christian values.
It's historic. Absolutely historic. What would you say would be the sentiment? You travel into major churches in America, and which is just remarkable. I mean, here's a nice Jewish boy traveling into the churches of America. What's the sentiment out there? I mean, you go into some major mega churches. You were in Paula White's church in South Florida, 20,000 members. You're with a lot of the major African American churches that are. What's the sentiment towards Israel?
Well, I think that a lot of the churches you'll see have great love for the Jewish people and the state of Israel, which is something that is natural because of the teachings of the Bible. Ezekiel, Isaiah, they all talk of the prophecies wherein the ingathering of the Jewish people will occur from the north to the south, to the east to the west. The land turning green, the dry bones coming up, as we see from the Holocaust, came up and became a nation in one day. These are all things that are tenets of our faith, and it's just natural to be supportive of something that proves our faith. But I think there's a difference in a lot of churches. Some realize that the modern state of Israel is the culmination of these prophecies, and some see it as maybe something that's just happening alongside with these prophecies. And I think that's where the real difference is. It depends on the individual pastor and how he's teaching his church, on where their church lies. And I think that's one of the important things. We have tours where myself and other members of the Knesset come and speak in churches around the world. I've probably spoken between 200 and 250 churches in the last 3 years. And part of it is to let people know that these prophecies are happening before our very eyes. And if you can read the Bible, you can read the newspaper, and you can see what's happening. And that it's an exciting time to be alive, but also it's a challenge to you to understand what's happening and be a part of it.
Which we're going to cover some of that in the message here in a few minutes. But you and I have talked a lot about values, how values have been seemingly eroding. Judeo-Christian values have been eroding in America. America was established on those values. Give us your passion and your burden and what you'd like to see happen with that.
Well, I mean, I've been studying Bible since I was 3. Us Jews start very early with Bible class.
Not a bad idea.
And one of the verses that always was interesting to me as a child was from Isaiah, where it said, "Woe unto those that call evil good and good evil, that put light for dark and dark for light, and put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter." And it always was a verse that really confused me. It was a mystery to me as a child. But as I grown, I realized that that's something that's happening all over the world in the form of moral relativism. And that people are trying to pretend that there is no good and evil. It's just, whatever you think is right. Mm-hmm. And that there is no right and wrong. And you see this in the universities in America and in Israel as well, and in the media and in the Hollywood movies we watch. They pretend that there's no basis at all for judging between good and evil. And I think that's something that Jews and Christians have to come together on and say, no, there are values, there are morals, and it doesn't just come from the air, it comes from a source, and that source is the Bible.
Absolutely. Today, the president, the leader of Iran, I'm going to try to say his name, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. Is that pretty good?
That's really good.
All right, I've been practicing. He is a Holocaust denier, denies the Holocaust ever existed. He's a revisionist. And he also made statements publicly that he wants to see Israel get wiped off the map. I just want to ask you about that. I mean, obviously, without doubt, he's a nutcase. He's a mess. And he seems to be an evil man. But is he serious? Is this a serious and a real threat?
Well, I think that he's very serious. And, a lot of people said that Hitler was a nutcase, and he was. But he was serious, and he had a plan. The official policy, the foreign policy of Iran is to wipe Israel off the map. And the fact that they're working towards nuclear weapons is just the mechanism they're going to use to achieve that foreign policy. And everyone's under threat in that case. I think that the Iranian nuclear issue is really the challenge of our time. If we allow Iran to get nuclear weapons, then America isn't safe, then Europe isn't safe, and Israel for sure isn't safe. And if we come together and we put our foot down and say, no, Iran, you can't have nuclear weapons, and stop them, then they can posture and make any threats they want. It's not going to come to pass. I think that this is one of the things that we are working towards right now with the American government, to decide on a real strategy to stop this from happening. Iran is constantly fighting against Israel. Its puppet armies, Hezbollah and Hamas, are at our front and back door, raining down rockets on the heads of our civilian population. But these are things that can be dealt with in a military style. The minute they have nuclear weapons, that's it. If you can imagine Nazis with nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles, you'd see what really the threat would be. And that's really the ideology there. And he's deadly serious. He's not in this for personal wealth or for greed. He lives very modestly, but he's a fanatic. And he believes that he's going to go on to the world to come with 72 virgins, and that if he can wipe out Israel before then, he can bring about the 12th Imam, which is their version of the Messiah. And this is what he's working towards. This is his plan.
So obviously, if we were born and raised in Israel, we would be a lot more aware. We would be a lot more maybe girded up, prayerful, watchful. All the way over here in America, we tend to forget about these things. What can we do? We can pray. We can certainly stand with Israel. We can get behind our congressmen and senators. There are certain things that we can do. Do you have any thoughts of what we can do to help safeguard Israel, which is the plan of God?
Well, I think the most important for sure is to pray for the peace of Jerusalem, which is commanded to do every day in the Bible. Prayer works and prayer helps, and the people of Israel appreciate all the prayers around the world for it. The second thing would be to come to Israel. I think coming to Israel and standing with the Jewish people. I don't think a lot of people appreciate just walking through the streets of Jerusalem and eating in the restaurants, how much that boosts the morale of the Israeli people and gives a source of, the idea that we're not alone. It's so important. And then the third way to help is an individual thing. People have to realize where their strengths are, whether it be writing your congressman or when you read something that is slanted against Israel in the news, writing the newspaper, or just speaking up to your friends about Israel. I think there are many individual ways to help Israel on a public relations point of view.
Well, I think I can speak on behalf of all of us that we want to get involved in this, and we recognize this is a serious moment for this nation and also the world. Wouldn't you guys say? Couple of quick questions here. Number one, where is Europe in all of this? What's been going on with Europe? We're hearing a lot about Muslim, diligent and determined disposition to get into Europe and start to basically take over the economy and things like that.
Well, I would say that Europe, from my personal view, is near collapse. They have lost their faith, and with it their reason and resolve. And you can see it all through Europe, what's happening. Within 50 years, if trends continue, it will be a Muslim nation. They stopped having children, the most basic blessing of being fruitful and multiply. The average European family has about 0.9 children, not even one per family.
Which is behind the actual death rate, so they're in decline. They're in population decline.
They're in major population decline. They have very loose immigration laws, and they have Muslim families who have on average about 5.2 children per family. If you look in Holland, for instance, in the next 10 years, there'll be more Muslims under the age of 18 than any other denomination, whether it be Christian, Jewish, Hindu, put together. In Sweden, the third largest city, Malmö, has been lost to Islamic militias. The police won't even go in there anymore. There are 14 million Muslims in France. In Marseille, for instance, on any given weekend, they'll have about 300 car bombings. That doesn't even get media play anymore.
No media play.
No media play. So it's a real crisis of faith in Europe right now, I would say.
In closing here, we're watching a miracle happen in the last 60 years, the regathering of the Jewish people. I'm going to cover that in the message here from a biblical standpoint, but just historically, the regathering of the Jews to their homeland, to Israel. The Hebrew word aliyah is descriptive of that, the regathering. And you are personally involved in that in what way?
Well, myself personally, I've taken time to volunteer to help with an organization to bring in the ingathering of the Jewish people to the biblical mountains of Samaria. I myself I'm a Ole, a new immigrant who came over from Dallas, Texas, and we are seeing people coming from all over the world, Jews coming back to Israel, just as it's been predictive, from about 70 different nations now. And I want to thank you for being a part of this prophecy of bringing back the Jewish people to its nation. It's important that everyone take part in this and strengthen the nation of Israel. And it's all of our duties to see this happen if we are interested in seeing the coming of the Messiah, because it's one of the prophecies that will lead to the coming of the Messiah.
I think we're interested. Wouldn't you guys say you're interested in that? Not just, Lord, bless what I'm doing, but let me be involved, Lord, in what you're doing. And how many millions of Jewish people have come back to Israel in the last?
We've grown from 600,000 people in 1948 to over 6 million today.
That's phenomenal growth. That is just...
In 59 years, yeah.
That is just absolutely phenomenal. So we're really in amazing times, and thank you for what you're doing. It's a brave thing for the Jewish people to walk into Christian churches where for 2,000 years they have suffered anti-Semitism. They've suffered the era of replacement theology. They've suffered the blood libel. They've suffered just in so many ways. And I just want to say to you, to the Knesset, we're honored to be a part. We're honored to come back together. And we just thank God that for what He's doing in this moment of reconciliation and standing together. So we thank you, Josh.
Well, thank you, Pastor. And I'd like to thank the people here as well. It's the grassroots that are really moving along this new cooperation, and the leadership is following along with that. When we announced the idea of the Christian Allies Caucus, we had tens of thousands of emails from across America at all our consulates and embassies asking, how can we get involved? How do we see this through? And I thank you for your leadership, and I thank all of you for your support.
Praise God. Thank you. Awesome. Come on, everybody.